for those that'll watch on potentially YouTube later, this very fun excitement that is the CAC. I mean, everybody watches the CAC. We must have like millions of views, right? So recording is in process, and I'm going to share the presentation. I'm going to share my screen so that we can transition to videos. Hopefully that works okay. I don't think I can move this thing. Do you guys see the top bar, or is that just me? You guys see the top bar, don't you? Okay, that'll go away when I stop clicking on things. And I think we're set.
I guess it depends on what you mean by top bar, but it says like it's a PDF document.
Yep. Okay, I'll get us set with the first agenda item. Do you want to move us through that, Jason?
Yeah. So, I guess we got to approve the meeting notes from our last meeting. So do I have a motion to approve the notes?
Well moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. We're good to move to the next.
Next portion. Okay, yep. So kind of on the agenda, we're going to hear from Nick some Robbinsdale updates. We'll transition into kind of what to expect in the Minneapolis area. We'll hear from Sam on just a general project update. And then Kathy Gold will join us and has some exciting news with our anti-displacement contractor. So let's kind of work through that. Obviously, like always, jump in at any point to ask questions and whatnot, and we'll make sure to pause as we get through sections too. So, oh, I'm up first. Ha ha ha. Everybody else. Yeah, that. Okay, so here, before I turn it over to Nick, I'll give us a little bit of what we heard. So just a little bit of background as well. As folks know, in July, we came out with station study areas, and then as well as visualizations of how LRT could fit into the community, and kind of ask folks, through July and August to really give us some feedback if you're headed in the right direction, especially with the station study areas. Obviously, with the visualizations, more work to be done, but that also was heard in the feedback that we received. So I'm going to spend just a couple minutes letting you all know what we've heard as we've processed this month a little bit. So July and August, we had about 45 events. There were 8 open houses, and then a variety of other activities that we did, whether it was pop-up events, Olu Hangout at a Hy-Vee, for example, attending events in the community, a lot of work with our community engagement cohort and kind of co-hosted events with them, and then stakeholder check-ins, so checking in with individuals. So that kind of makes that 45. The thing that's not in that 45 is just the pop-ins to try to connect with people, and kind of some of the door knocking and stuff that the team has worked on. Overall, there were about 2,000 points of contact with people in those meetings, as well as about 220 comments on our interactive map, responding to the station locations, things like that. So what we heard in terms of the station study areas, obviously in Brooklyn Park, those stations have kind of all been set, so kind of more focusing on our southern end to the feedback received. And I would say we got fairly general concurrence on where our station studies areas should be. In a lot of those bubbles, there's a lot of discussion about where you might place a station specifically and why. And then as this map shows a little bit even, I think in the Minneapolis area, we did get some comments about, could you have additional stations? Could you have closer station spacing, and how that might work? That's kind of an overview of what we heard. In terms of the visualizations, for the Brooklyn Park community, we kind of re-brought out things that people had seen maybe in like 2018. And that just kind of spurred questions of, how did we make these decisions? How are park and rides cited? Like, why do you have one at Oak Grove or not 93rd and whatnot? In Crystal, still a lot of questions about the roadway design. We have a little bit of an update on Bass Lake Road today. And then safe pedestrian connections to the station and how that all works has been, I would say, it's a continuous topic, right? It's one that we heard in the past and one that we hear today. So that's a good indication for us that we think of like the Bass Lake Road Station, how pedestrian access works, and the safety of the pedestrian environment, how the pedestrian environment feels, all important things. In Robbinsdale, also pedestrian safety. Jason's been at a few meetings where that's been, something that we talk about quite a bit. Traffic flow, a lot of, how does it work with emergency vehicles, and does it flow with traffic, and will it make traffic worse? That kind of stuff. A lot of conversation about that, and responding to that, because in a lot of ways LRT just flows a thing. Kind of that community cohesion conversation. How does LRT become part of what is there versus a dividing piece? And then obviously the connection to Robbinsdale and North Memorial, and kind of that park and ride discussion. In Minneapolis, in a lot of ways, the visualizations just spurred the need for more information and more questions. So how do turn lanes work? How do we place stations? And for Lowry, a lot of questions about the bike accommodations. Overall pedestrian crossings, that mid-block crossing where things aren't maybe signalized. And then main theme that is that both asking about direct displacement and then indirect displacement, and having that be a leading comment and question that folks have of us. So we will continue to summarize our feedback, and we'll have more of a kind of complete report in October. And the basis of what everybody has been telling us will also help inform our draft report for later this year. So with that, just wanted to get everybody that, and Nick has some updates on the technical side.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming. And I'm going to discuss more of the County Road 81 update, focusing more on Robbinsdale and Crystal area. As we remember, Brooklyn Park, our plans are already at that 90% level. So, not a lot of new information up there, but we continue to work with the staff there to keep engaged. But and then after I'm done, Dan is going to jump in and we'll have a little bit more detailed information about our status and where we're at with in the Minneapolis route options. So starting off in Robbinsdale, and I just want to put the caveat out here that all the information you see, we've got some pretty cool videos that we put together, graphics based on some plan drawings, and they look very developed, but they're more for just an idea of how things will fit and massing and size of guideways and how it works. These are really based on about maybe 5% of engineering. So there's still a lot of stuff that needs to go into this stuff, a lot of work, and that will be our effort next year. But this is really to keep that conversation going, to answer questions, how things work, how they fit, what are some of the options out there. So at North Memorial area, as we're coming up into Robbinsdale, we have a couple different options of how we would come up, either through from West Broadway. Have two different options on West Broadway, how we would come up from a center running at grade and into this area. And then we'll talk about Lowry, how we can make that connection from Lowry onto County Road 81. So this one right here, we're just calling it option one. It is an option that takes a look at, as we on the left hand side, that graphic, north is to the top of the graphic, south is as we're coming out of Minneapolis. So you can see the North Memorial campus there on kind of the left hand side of things, just to give some perspective. But this is coming from a center running at grade West Broadway configuration, and then how we work within context of those bridges that are being constructed over Lowry and over the Theodore Wirth Parkway area in there. So this again, we'll have some videos here that we can walk through and just take a look, and you can see from all different angles. But as we come up at this, one thing to consider here is as we're coming up, we need to get up because of the distance of the new bridges being constructed. There's not enough space to slide in the light rail right in between those two bridge structures. So we kind of have to come up and over them to get some clearance. So we're in between them, but we're bringing the platform up and over, so overhanging a little bit. What you see on the right-hand side is that's go back one. Is that how a station would fit with that configuration, that center running. And in this location, as we come back down, we need to get a flat area to put a station in. So we need to come up and over, come down, and try to find, at least 300 to 400 feet of more flat space that's tangent, that we can get a train to a station and set up a station where folks can use it. So this one, because of the grades and everything, and this option, it makes us push that station down towards or up towards the north end of North Memorial. The intersection that you see there is Abbott Avenue coming out of there, and we're showing a station platform that's an elevated station platform on a structure, and we do show a connection to the parking ramp, so it makes a connection to North Memorial. All right, next option, please. This is option number 2. And I can just say right away that this option where we come up from center running, and then we come up and over the northbound lanes of County Road 81 that are under construction now. And what this does for us, if we're only crossing over that northbound lane and we're getting it before it gets up on a bridge structure, we can not have to bring up the light rail quite so high, so we can get a flat spot a little bit sooner in this area. So it gives us the option of pushing the station a little bit more to the south. And what's shown on the left-hand side is kind of a view looking to the east. So Lowry is kind of going up and down through the page there, and it shows a station there that's more on that south side of the hospital campus. Maybe provides a little bit better connection to the campus, so you can get to both that parking structure. The admin building is on that north side of Oakdale, which is the road that's kind of coming diagonally through there, and then the hospital itself, the actual emergency areas and hospital areas that are on the south side of that Oakdale. It also gives us a little bit better connection into that trail system for the Minneapolis Park Board, and I know Minneapolis Park Board are in discussion with them. They look at this as a potential amenity to make that connections to the park with transit. All right, let's take a look at the next one, please. And I'll take some questions, and we'll look at a video and we'll take some questions after that, or we can talk a little bit about it. So this is Lowry Avenue. Again, we're coming down Lowry Avenue so the photo, the graphic that you see on the left-hand side as you look towards the top of the page, that's Lowry Avenue, and the light rail is coming from at grade center running through that area up onto a structure that brings us up and over those southbound lanes of County Road 81 and then into a center running configuration. So if you jump over to the right-hand picture there, that picture now is looking north, where you can see that a bridge structure that curves over that over County Road 81. Actually, sorry, northbound lanes. If I said southbound, it's northbound lanes, gets us to center running, and you can see off in the distance a station that connects again to the hospital at the ramp area. So let's go to the next slide. So this is a video, and this is actually a video of the Lowry option and how we come out of it. So we're gonna kind of do a 360 fly around of this and take a look at it, but it gives you a good perspective how the massing of a structure would be, how it fits within context of those of the road and the bridge structures that are being constructed now. So flying in, you can see we're now center running in the middle of County Road 81. There's a station there, and again, because of the grades that we need to, it pushes the station a little bit farther to the north in this configuration, but we have that connection to the hospital, to their parking ramp. And that's kind of looking at that southbound lane. We're over the top of it. Back over Lowry here. and that gives you a better perspective, more of a ground view of how that bridge is taller than the existing bridges out there. So that's a indication of Lowry. We're going to jump in and look at. We have two more videos here. One, this is of West. Oh, that was Lowry again. We're going to look at West Broadway. We have two options on West Broadway now. This is the one that kind of flies over that southbound lane and makes the jog over a little bit closer to the hospital, with the station more on the south side of the hospital campus. We don't have a good graphic of it here, but this offers an opportunity at Oakdale to drop down with a vertical circulation structure that would have elevators and stairs that would come down to that Oakdale area. So it'd have those connections to both that portion of the hospital over there and to the park and to the neighborhood around it. So again, there's a lot of detail that will still need to be filled into these, but again, these really are just really good to visualize a little bit better at perspective how things will work. So the next video, it will be the center running option that we looked at first. So we're coming up that middle and staying in the middle through this area, and you'll see how that structure, the bridge structure, will have to get up higher than the road around it, so we can clear those bridge decks. Because we're coming up, we need to come back down. We're chasing grade because County Road 81, as it goes north, starts diving down also. So it takes us a while to get to an area where we can flatten things out to put the station here. So that's why it really, this option pushes the station more towards the north end of the hospital campus and would serve more of that Abbott area for the community to get to. So as we finish up here and take a look at it, I guess I can, if there's any questions or comments or on these videos, or we be happy to answer anything.
Hi, Nick. This is Kathy Fraser. Could you clarify, did you say that the second option will serve more people?
I think they would all serve the same amount. It just might be, how convenient it is for certain areas. So the option where we're more on the south end of the hospital probably has the better connections to the trails, to the parkboard trails and to that neighborhood to the south. That this is kind of right on that border of Robbinsdale and on the border of Minneapolis in the area. The other option where it pushes the station more towards the north end of the hospital and where Abbott Avenue is, would kind of push away from some of those trail connections. Although we'd make sure that that we have adequate connections to get around to the neighborhood, but it might be just serve different areas and maybe a little bit more of a walk depending on where you live on any of these configurations.
Thanks for that.
No.
Nick, quick question. I know that North Memorial has expressed interest in having the station in the air with a connection to the hospital directly, but I'm wondering, have you done any research into like at grade without that bridge, or are there any examples with that? And the reason I'm asking is that I live right by there, and even though the visualizations do show some homes, I think there's way more homes that are really close to where that bridge, either of those bridges, come down, where as the road stands today, those houses are lower than the road, but I think like I don't know. It just seems like, some of the houses will be above the road, but they'll be at grade with the bridge and the light rail. Anyway, I guess the question is around designs at grade.
Yeah, and we've taken a look at what some at-grade options will be, and they're very impactful also. You know, we're kind of weaving through the bridges being constructed. You know, they're at a point and they're in construction that, you know, we didn't have a chance to get a hold of that. So, you know, we're reacting around that design. But, you know, with all the roadways, the Oakdale, the Theodore Worth Parkway, the Lowry coming through there, and the bridge structures, it really becomes kind of a spaghetti area to work through. So we looked at what some of those options are, but they start really impacting either that frontage road that's on the east side of the hospital structure. That's a major road for deliveries and access to those parking structures, and how their deliveries and maintenance and everything come in. So that was really one of the points. And, you know, if we try to stay more at grade and try to, you know, shift things around, it starts having more impacts, pushing everything out a little bit more on the ground. So there ends up being quite a few more impacts, maybe to all the roadway in there, the frontage road that's on the hospital, potentially the frontage road that would be on the east side also. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, John has his hand up.
Yeah,
Okay.
is there an option two? Is there the potential to maybe extend a pedestrian walkway over 81 as part of that trail connection piece to make it more accessible to people on that side of the road?
Yeah, I guess we haven't dove into it that hard. You know, we are at the very beginning of that, but, you know, that would be something that we could look at. You know, the grades may work for that, but it might also be pretty tall as it touches down. And as you start getting, you know, if we haven't looked at it hard, but a lot of times as you have structures and bridges to come up to pedestrian ramps, you need approaches to those. And a lot of times those ramps can be, you know, we try to fold them and tuck them in, but, you know, if you stretch them out, they're 300 to 400 feet long. So they start taking up a lot of real estate. But yeah, we could take a look at that.
I also want to just pull for some initial reactions too. I know, Jason, like you brought up that, you know, this is close to people, you know, and kind of that visual impact, and even kind of between the options, how you start to kind of view them. I think we have other Robbinsdale folks on the call, and folks that maybe live on the Minneapolis side as well, close by. Go ahead, Brett.
Yep, I'll jump in. And actually, this is just from the news reports of how they're talking about Robbinsdale now, not, you know, some of the members of the community now feeling that good about what's been the development of the conversation right now. And again, I'm not that far away, being just off the Parkway, and I'm trying to visualize it as well, like many of us. What's been the conversation like with those members of the community, and it is, well, what are some of the alternatives that we could have if we get a little more pushback?
I can tell, you know, we have talked to quite a bit of the community, and either Sophia or Dan, you can jump in. I know you guys have been probably to a few more of the driveway meetings, but you know, as far as the article goes, we still work with the city staff on all this stuff, and we're working through, you know, identifying what the issues could be and how things work through here. You know, the community, I think, you know, anecdotally, I'd say, you know, we're getting a lot of positive input, but we also have a lot of folks that are concerned about it, and have, you know, a lot of concerns about, you know, as they brought out, you know, is it a divide, you know, are there safety issues, you know, and things like that. So as far as options go, you know, right now, as we've rolled it out here, County Road 81 is the option that we have out here for this route, and that's really what we see as an option. You know, we've asked that question: are we missing something? Does anybody see any other, you know, continuous route that gets us that north and south? And there really isn't. So.
Brett, when you were asking about options, did you mean to County Road 81 or do you mean to what we're showing right now?
Two County Road 81. I mean, even and I think what I was, because I'm hearing multiple things from certain members of the community that, of course, they had their original design of what light rail was supposed to be through Robbinsdale initially, and now with this jog over 281, which I mean, again, it makes the most sense from a space wise, but again, there's some other challenges to it. That so what I'm trying to get my head wrapped around is that it's still going to have to come into Minneapolis through that corridor, either through onto Laurie or to Broadway. But is this really going? If there is this major pushback that starts to take place, is there an alternative to consider to get through this? Because it's I know exactly how these things start to snowball. Neighbors start to dig their heels in and kind of move off from there. So I think that's just my concern right now more than anything else. As I'm
and that's what we need to work through, both with the city council and with the community. And I mean, Dan can echo this too, but we've been out many conversations with Robbinsdale residents, both at driveway events and also with just some of the individual property owners in the area. And lost my train of thought for a second. And a lot of the conversation is, is the answer, are we on 81? The answer is yes. It really is the option. And you could kind of read in the article this weekend, there's a big question Robbinsdale has been, especially with a few of the council members, has been about the rail corridor. And we heard, I think, pretty clearly from some of our congressional representative that the ship has sailed, the trains kind of coming along, and part of what we want to do in October with Robbinsdale is it just as we kind of go through, you kind of hear some of the common concerns. I think Jason just kind of hit on visual impact. This is kind of what does it look like? Kind of that community cohesion and safety, and so kind of tackling those things and walking through, and it's an ongoing process. These conversations are never easy; they take time, and just kind of going through it. Dan, anything to add on that?
Well, I think the key piece is that just in general, for the CAC, I mean, just in general, Robbinsdale, the city of Robbinsdale council, staff, and community has been, interested in being served by light rail and a major transit investment going back a long way. And they've been very good partners with Hennepin County Met Council and all of their neighbors in bringing this project forward. They were strongly supportive of an alignment that went on Burlington Northern Railroad, and council members still are. And I get that, and that's absolutely true. We are convinced that a deal with Burlington Northern isn't going to happen. And not only do we think that, but the county and Met Council made a significant decision last year to not only say that, but also to say, so we want to look at a different project. And that's what we're doing now. It's not even at this point about being unable to make a deal with the railroad. It's about the fact that we've moved to a different project, a project that serves North Minneapolis, a project that comes up from Target Field on a different route, but a project that still meets the principles of connecting Target Field Station to North Brooklyn Park, including serving Robbinsdale. So we have and did early on, or in the later part of 2020 and in early 2021, look at a number of ways to do that without using railroad right away. And when you look at the lakes and that are in Robbinsdale, the condition of West Broadway, Noble, other streets, coming up 55 to Highway 100 and coming into Robbinsdale that way, but completely bypassing North Minneapolis. What we've centered on is, in order for light rail and a light rail corridor to work, the 81 corridor is the one that makes sense and that it can be done on. So our goal as a project team now is to continue to take public feedback and to work towards a plan that we believe addresses as many obstacles and issues presented to us by the community while still serving the base goals of the project, which is to connect light rail from Target Field Station to Brooklyn Park. And so we've looked at different options for side running, center running on 81. We continue to look at where a downtown station would go and how it would be connected. This part that you're seeing today about how we connect out of Minneapolis into Brooklyn Park is several options that we're working not with just the hospital on, but with city staff on and with the council. And we, Brett, will continue to develop options to address issues, to get to a plan that we believe truly works. Ultimately, policymakers will have to decide, are we pulling this project forward? But to that end, we've tried to get and hear as many voices as we can. We've had the opportunity to visit in one Jason Greenberg's driveway with a public meeting. We've been able to visit in Councilmember Tyler Klein's driveway. We've been in the mayor's driveway. We've been at numerous parks in and around the city with driveway meetings. We've been in residential properties. We've been, with our larger meetings, we're trying to hear as many voices and get as many ideas about how best to provide a connection through Robbinsdale. We're never going to make everyone love it, but the goal is not to make everyone love it. The goal is to provide a project that is, that provides the opportunities and investments in the city to bring the benefits as well as the impacts.
Brett, I'll say just really quickly, anecdotally, because I've talked to a lot of community members and just get a lot of feedback. And to Dan's point, I mean, it's like, you're not going to make everyone happy. There are definitely people that are super excited about this, that are really not happy about it. But the general consensus on concern is not so much like an outcry of no, not at all. It's more of, we want our questions answered. And I think the project is at too early of a point to give definitive answers on pedestrian changes, on traffic flows, on, I mean, even to the, like, a lot of questions around like where the station's going to be, and we don't even have that, specific, we don't have specific answers yet. And so I think there are a lot of concerns from residents in Robbinsdale about how is this going to impact our community? What is this going to look like? What are these changes going to mean? And I think maybe some of that no from the article that you read is around like, we don't, there aren't a lot of great answers yet. And so I think that gives people in Robbinsdale hesitation. I mean, everyone pretty much brings up the rail corridor relative to 81. And I think in a perfect world, it'd be in the rail corridor, but that's not what we're operating in. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I think I pay attention to a lot of the forums. I've been to a lot of these meetings. I don't feel there's like an overwhelming no. I think it's more of like, these are our real concerns and we want these answered, and those answers aren't there just yet.
So take, for example, what you just saw here. Have we done all three options, Nick?
Yes, we have.
So take, for example, what we saw here. We had visited with the neighborhoods. We had visited with the hospital. We had visited with the county engineering staff about what's going on with the construction of the West Broadway bridges. And we developed some examples for how to connect out of Minneapolis. We visited with the hospital. They gave us some thumbs up on some of this, some thumbs down. We like this, we like that. And we've started to make revisions based on that. We brought two of these options to the council, one that came from Lowry, one that came from West Broadway and made the loop that you see on the screen. They said, hey, because of that impact, what about if you go back and do a video for one that comes up the center and we come up the middle instead? So we went back and did that. So that's kind of the process we're in, right? I mean, we develop some stuff, we get feedback, we go back, we bring some more things forward. That works, that doesn't work. We talked about stations at 41st and 40th. The council's having us look at which you're not seeing tonight because it's not quite ready, but the council's asked us to look at pedestrian crossings over or under 81 in the downtown area that wouldn't cross that grade on the tracks. We're looking at where could that be? What might they look like? How might that work? All of those things are just continued iterative pieces that lead us to, and that's essentially what municipal consent is all about, is continuing to work on a plan that by the time we get to municipal consent, it has addressed the issues that have come up. Now, if there's a general, we don't want LRT in Robbinsdale at all, that's a hard one to solve by design, right? That's a different analysis. And what we're trying to do, and I think Jason's right, there's a lot of concerns about a lot of things, and we just pick those off as we go and start addressing them and coming up with answers.
Can I follow up with a question to Dan?
Catherine, sure.
Okay. I'm getting more detailed questions from folks, and that is, and I'll just read them off and you can tell me where I'll find the answers. Who is building this train? What materials are being used? What percent of local residents are being either trained or employed for working on the light rail? And is there a committee that's working on the areas that we know will be impacted within a quarter mile of the station, like finding resources for housing rehab for people within the general area, business funds, analysis of the impact to the area when we're talking about police, sanitation, schools, entertainment. So where would I go to get those answers?
You can send us the list. And we
Well,
can start to
Catherine,
answer
they're all good. They're all good
Going through.
questions. What I don't want to do, unfortunately, while I would love to have, I don't want to derail this particular derail. I shouldn't use that term. I don't want to move this meeting. I mean, because I could spend a long time on all that stuff. They're all good questions. They're all very much ones that are on our radar in many ways. And so,
to go through a couple of them, Dan, I think the
the
Met Council is building this project.
Is there a place where I can go and get the answers? I mean, of course, you've thought about this. Is there a committee that's working on it that can give this answers to the committee?
That's us, Catherine.
So what?
That's us. Come to us and we're happy to answer.
Right, but I mean, the community is not coming to you. We are, the people on this call. So obviously, these are concerns about people who are going to be close to the train wherever it's going to be.
So Catherine, if I could just maybe add, I think a lot of what you just asked, some of that is definitely like on our website, but that is not the best way. We'd rather just maybe interact with folks and sit down and kind of share that, because then we also get some feedback. So we're happy to take that list. I'm sure you probably have more questions, and we can get to those answers. But it's the reason why we have definitely these opportunities, and why Sophia and the team are out and being able to ask them. But it'll just be easier for us to get you those answers more directly that way. And but if you feel like there are some really important pieces that you would like to see more present in some of our either materials or something like that, we can also have that conversation.
Yeah, Sam, I think there's a couple topics that Catherine had there that could be CAC agenda items in the future. For example, this whole business of workers and employees, local and close. I mean, I answered that question in 2 other meetings already today. And so, I mean, that's something that's coming up all the time. And it's one that, is certainly worth addressing as an agenda item, kind of some of the things that are coming up.
And one of the reasons I personally asked is that I look on your website to see what RFPs are out there, and you're looking for people to do a lot of the groundwork, exactly groundwork when we're talking about breaks and things like that. So I'm thinking, well, what minority companies are being hired to do this when you are having RFPs out there? What is the criteria? Are our people first on the list? Are they even on the list? So that will that's what was driving me personally. And then to hear from other community members as well, how let's show them some of the benefits that will come to them other than just the light rail. I mean, we're in a situation now with the American Rescue Plan that there's plenty of money out there. So let's use it. And if North Memorial wants a route to the train, let them pay for it.
Well,
That's it.
that would be a great conversation.
Yeah, I'll have it if you want.
Catherine, you're hitting on some really good questions and things that we are kind of in development and answering to as well. Dan is right. He and I are both looking at spreadsheets, right, and trying to take a look at who is receiving the benefits of these projects, both through our disadvantaged business enterprise program that we do, and how can we get that out and make sure that folks are on that list, ready to go. There's a whole support network, both that the county does, we do, as well as some of the small business groups to kind of get that and help folks get on those lists for that work as well. We also feel like that is a great starter for some of our conversations with community members, particularly as we look at some of that anti-displacement work. Like that is something we can do tomorrow.
So I think that a lot of questions there. Takeaway is that we're going to have a workforce / disadvantaged business enterprise contracting topic at a future meeting to kind of really dig into all of that. Both, I think, maybe what we've done or what we've been doing, and then kind of looking forward as well. So tracking that, make sure that's in the minutes as a follow-up, and Catherine too, you know where to find us. So if there's a need for more immediate conversation, we can set up a time to sidebar as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry,
Sure.
Nick.
Yeah.
Just as far as, because I know a lot of Robbinsdale residents have brought up the idea of like having light rail elevated, and I know from like a space standpoint, it didn't seem like an optimal way to go. Like we didn't save a lot of space or anything like that. But just given that it's elevated at North Memorial and you're working to get it down to grade, is there any benefit to just like, hey, people asked for it to be up in the air and elevated, and we already are elevated for North Memorial. Let's just keep it elevated through Robbinsdale.
I guess we have shown some of those options, and I know that as we've shown them, with that elevated option, I think, we don't want to elevate through a whole area because it really does change the context of how things go. Um, that let's just take cost out. It's definitely way more expensive, but in areas where we have grade issues and stuff, that it makes sense here. And really, this is a long structure because we're having to come up and over bridges, and then we have to catch up with grade. So it lengthens it out. But in areas where we have space to get it in, it really makes it part of the community and doesn't take it up and away from the community. So I guess that's why we've had that discussion a little bit. We've talked with some folks. We have some examples, and I don't think those have been well received as far as grade separating through the whole downtown area.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Let's not elevate it in Robbinsdale if it's too expensive for Minneapolis.
Well, that's not. I think what we want to do is be cognizant of where we're putting it in and making sure that it serves community and not causing some other issues related to it. So, shall we keep moving here? So we've got a few more slides, and I know Dan wants to talk a little bit about Minneapolis too and what we're doing. So moving up the road here, getting into Crystal, we've got some things going on here. And I think we've mentioned before in some of our presentations that, we're taking a look at, as we get north of Highway 100 on County Road 81, continuing north when we start veering off up at about 73rd north of 694, that, it's 6 lanes of traffic now. If we start coming in with the center running LRT, that LRT would take up, two of those lanes, a lane in each direction or however you want to allocate it. And then we would be able to maintain 2 lanes of traffic each direction outside of that, outside with the light rail at grade center running. We've looked at capacity, of that highway section, being able to get the vehicles through and making sure that we can maintain the capacity of the roadway by, going from 6 lanes down to 4 lanes of vehicle traffic. And then we've also taken a look at, what this does to intersections, because really that capacity starts showing up when you get to an intersection and how the intersection is operating, and that our work there doesn't, start severely being a detriment to the intersection operations, that, things still work, flow well, they're convenient. So what we did recognize though was that Bass Lake Road, because that is such a, a major intersection going through there, and with the configuration that this was a challenge for us to keep that intersection working at capacity. So we'll have some better graphics here coming up that we're working on, but one of the ideas here at Bass Lake Road is that we would potentially look at we were looking at an interchange here. So to solve those capacity issues with the through lanes of traffic, because the heavy traffic is going on County Road 81. If we separate that from the intersection, so what we're seeing here is County Road 81 is coming, and then it would go up and over Bass Lake Road on a structure, and then come back down. And what happens is light rail would stay at grade. So we're not having light rail up in there. We're not having it keeping up with County Road 81. Bring County Road 81 up, and what you're seeing in the middle of this intersection in that kind of that light brownish color or whatever, those would be bridge structures for County Road 81 to go over Bass Lake Road. And this is what we would call a very tight, extremely tight diamond intersection. So it has on and off ramps on both sides. So you'd have still full access from County Road 81 to Bass Lake Road, but the through lanes of traffic keep moving. So we solved the traffic issue there. And what this does is offers us the opportunity then to bring that station down at grade, so it's more accessible and safer access, because we're not having people go across 81 where it's higher speed in this area. And so we have those better connections to the station. What's not shown here is there's a potential for having maybe a better construction. So station, I'll continue here. The station is what's shown here there in yellow, and on the south side of the intersection. So north is on the very left-hand side of this picture. So the station in there, there's good convenient access to that station at grade. So if you're coming down Bass Lake Road from either direction to get to it, you'd still have to cross, an on or off ramp here, but that's more limited traffic, but that you could get to the station platform entrance at grade in that area and get right to the station. And then the same thing, we're looking at how the access would work on the south end with this configuration of maybe having some tunnels that come through on either side to get people, from grade, and you're not having to go up and over. You can just go, straight through line of sight to a station location. So this again solves the traffic issue. It really brings that more safe, convenient access to a station, keeps that station at grade. And so then the only thing going through that intersection, the on and off ramps would have to be signalized to control that traffic getting onto Bass Lake Road, but it would be just as a train was coming through, that would have to be controlled so the train could get through across Bass Lake Road. But again, the trains run on 10-minute headways, so if you just average it out, there's only a train coming to the station about every 5 minutes. So that's really not that often. And when it goes through that intersection, it's pretty quick. It's through the intersection in seconds. So this is one thing that one of the issues that came up was the capacity and intersection operation. And this is an idea, that a concept that we have to solve that. I think we can go. Any questions on this?
Question,
Yeah.
Nick, a generic one.
Okay.
What constitutes a station? What's happening there? How big
Okay.
is it and what's going on there?
Okay, you want to go back to it? Our stations are pretty standard, Catherine. A train consist is 300 feet long, so the station platform needs to be big enough to handle a full 3-car consist train. So that's kind of the yellow we're showing there. This is a center platform station, so the tracks are on either side of it. So the different directions would be on either side of the station, but that station's roughly I'm trying to remember, it's about 17 feet wide. Across it has the canopies, shelters in it. It has signage and kiosks that tell messaging kiosks. It has cameras for security on it and has announcements on it. And then on either end of that station, there'll be ramps. That station platform is about 14 inches high, so it's level boarding with the train. So if the tracks are at grade, we need to ramp people up that 14 inches to get them on the station. So what the gray you're seeing on the end is the ramp up to the station, the walkway.
Okay, the reason I was asking, I was wondering if I could shop there.
Shop there? Yeah, on Bass Lake Road?
No, I mean at the stations. Will stations have the capability for commercial activity?
Right now we do not. There's not a lot of room on the station. We try to keep it so it's safe and convenient and for people coming on and off the train. But it's really they're not designed for people to linger there, and there's really not a lot of room for additional stuff like that, Catherine. So we
Okay.
don't have that right now.
So we only have a couple stations embedded in other infrastructure, like the Mall of America stations, or on southwest, or southwest station at the end is kind of embedded in a larger parking structure. But a lot of the commercial, you leave the transit area to do your kind of commercial work. It's kind of connected versus being integral to the station itself. You might be thinking of like New York, where you would have like a kiosk as across from the platform while you go down into the metro area. And like we might be adjacent, but it's not all in the same place.
Right, or some vending machines or something like that. So that's what I was curious about. Okay.
Catherine, I always think of the Orange Line station in Chicago that has a Dunkin' Donuts in it. That I like that one.
Or the Chicago that has their signature hot dog.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on this interchange concept here?
So, Nick, I know you explained it, and just one more time, because I thought I had it right, and now I feel like I'm confused. But the light rail is going to go at grade through the intersection, and Bass Lake is going to be grade separated, or the other way around?
It's the other way around. County Road 81 will come up and over. So as we're following the cursor coming through, the 81 will come up on 2 different structures, one for each direction of traffic, and it will come up and over. So 81, if you're going down to 81, you would continue just going through here. You wouldn't have to deal with an intersection. You just keep going. The station will continue and stay at grade. So the bridge structure for 81 structures will come up on either side. The station kind of stays at grade. I wouldn't say dive. It's more the road goes up, the station stays at grade, and it's at the pretty much the existing grade that you'd see out there right now.
What helps me think about it is that basically, if you're on County Road 81, you don't have to stop for anybody to get through the interchange, whereas the LRT and Bass Lake Road will have to coordinate with each other to kind of get traffic through.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sorry, I know you did just say that, but it's like that's helpful. I appreciate it.
It's hard to see on this. We're developing kind of some better visualization similar to what we saw at North Memorial that'll help put that in perspective, because truthfully, Jason, I look at plans like this all the time, and sometimes this is a little difficult for me to catch everything in there. There's a lot going on in a small picture. So, all right, and Crystal, some of the other stuff that's going on is obviously we've talked about there's an airport there, and previously with the project, we got a permit for doing our work when we're within the rail corridor. Well, now we're moving about 95 feet closer by moving the alignment out into the middle of County Road 81. And so it's closer to that airport. So, we're partnering, working with MAC, the Metropolitan Airports Commission, who the owner operator of the airports and with the Federal Aviation Administration on, taking a look at this to make sure that this is viable. So we've been having good coordination with them. They know about the project. We've gone out there and done some more detailed surveys in this area. And we could probably take a look at the next slide, Sophia. Some more detailed surveys of where the glide zones are, the approach zones, and stuff for the airport are, and how our facility would fit within there. So everybody's comfortable that we could go through here and it'll operate and not interfere with the airport operations or be a safety issue. So that is some updates that we have along County Road 81, and I think, do we have one more slide, Sophia? I think. So upcoming meetings that we have in Crystal here on Wednesday, September 29th at the Community Center. We'll have a lot of the same information and be looking for input from the public on some of the information we have out here. And we will have actually upgraded some visuals and of that interchange that'll be a little bit more refined and maybe give people a little bit better idea how it all fits in context. And then Robbinsdale, I think Sophie already talked about this a little bit earlier, that we're looking to have an open house here in October timeframe and continue our conversations there. With that, I think I'll turn it back to Dan.
Dan's turn. Or questions or thoughts before we move on. I think it's yours, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about what's happening and what the next number of months looks like in the city of Minneapolis as we continue to advance discussions in the segment between Target Field Station and the Robbinsdale border or North Memorial, as we continue to talk about the various factors and issues that will lead us with community input to work towards recommending a route through the Minneapolis segment of the alignment. And so thought I'd start with a little bit of kind of how this process has kind of moved through as and what we have in front of us as we've taken on 2021. So what are done, a couple of the things that are done is early on, we pulled out a bunch of maps and looked at ways to get from Target Field Station to the Robbinsdale border. We looked at available right-of-ways. We've looked at destinations. We looked at areas that could support LRT without significant residential property impacts. And we brought that information out to the public. And we worked on that. I mean, that was what we did early on in 2021. And what that led us to is the map that most everyone is now familiar with, that shows that we narrowed the various options down to what we call the West Broadway option and the Lowry Washington Avenue option. So essentially, West Broadway from the Robbinsdale border to Lyndale and Plymouth, and then Lowry to Washington and Washington to Washington and Plymouth, and then some iterations and potential routes to get from those areas into downtown. So those are the routes we've been concentrating on. Those are the routes that we believe the community said, go continue to explore LRT on. So when that was done, we took it to the next piece and said, if these are the routes, where are possible station study areas? Not necessarily exactly where the station will go and what the configuration will be, but in general, what will be the areas that are most likely usable for stations. And so we did some maps to that, had some community input, brought that to CAC as well as many other public meetings, and have kind of settled on the anticipated station configurations, both along Lowry, along Washington Avenue, into downtown, along West Broadway, Lyndale, and into downtown. So those two things we believe are what are guiding us now to the next step. And the next steps are really what we're working on between now and the end of the year. And that is on those two routes, establishing, gathering data, and then evaluating numerous criteria on both of the routes to help that guide the community and us as owners and operators of the light rail to a preferred route. And I've got a couple slides coming up that'll talk a little bit about what some of those criterias are, what we're doing, what we're pulling together, what we'll have available. The other thing is we did our glimpses and we showed LRT on West Broadway and on Lyndale and on Lowry and on Washington Avenue, kind of how it generally fits in the section of roadways on all of those routes in its base condition. But now we get to the, kind of the, as you know, the term, the devil's in the details. Well, now we're starting, hopefully we're not going to find the devil, but we're going to find and know more about the details. And those come down to where are the actual stations going to go? What options are there for the station placement and station configurations? And what impact will those decisions have on adjacent right-of-way impacts and right-of-way needs? And where are there intersections with turn lanes that will then also widen at those intersection areas and cause property impacts? They're critical because while we've shown that we can fit LRT in those corridors, we know that there are certain things that will require more significant impacts, and they are stations and turn lanes. So on the first item, as we talk about evaluation process, criteria, these are some of the examples, and then we're just showing here kind of some maps that will be used to do that. So this map here is of existing land use. So you can see the routes in the station areas on this map, West Broadway and Lowry and Washington Avenue. And then you can see underlying it existing land use. And so we'll evaluate these corridors against what is the existing land use. What's the comprehensive plan? What's the future land use? Where are there other land use opportunities and redevelopment opportunities along the route? And how do each of those things impact a preferred corridor through here? Considerations of equity. Which of the routes will more equitably serve the community? Where has there been redlining in the past on property ownership and property use that could be solved by providing a more equitable transportation solution? Where are there income impacts and past historic disincentives that can be taken and addressed by building equity into building something? And there's a difference there. I mean, there's just a difference. And we have maps that we'll also be providing that show how we can measure and determine some of those things. Demographics will be an important piece. Where are there single car households? Where is their population density? What is the residential versus the community? The commercial, that's maybe more of a land use decision through there. What are the education levels and income levels? That again, some of those go to equity, some of those go to community demographics, BIPOC communities, all of those kind of things that can help guide us to there. So that's some of what the evaluation process will consider. We're also evaluating traffic and parking along these routes. What are the traffic volumes? Where are intersections and left turn lanes needed along each of the routes? How can we move all types of traffic, transit, LRT, pedestrian, bicycle, vehicular? Which routes are better able to absorb each of those things, and how will it work? Parking has always been a concern along Washington, Lowry, and West Broadway. And so we've done some background data collecting on where there's existing parking today, where parking would be removed if LRT is built. We've done counts on where people are utilizing parking today on these routes. Where is parking heavy? Where do people hardly ever park? And how will decision making and mitigation of those impacts be considered when we compare these routes against each other? We've talked a lot about, sorry, Sophia, I just want to talk one again about right of way. Right of way is a really big piece here because there will be minor impacts where we might need some temporary easements or a couple of feet of property near a parking lot. Those are minor impacts. Where will we need to, along each of these routes, buy or acquire lots or businesses or buildings, vacant or open, and how do we develop options? And that'll be a little bit about the engineering piece. How do we compare each of these routes against how much property acquisition is needed? And not only in the terms of right of way, how much acquisition is needed, but then what's left after that acquisition to provide opportunity for redevelopment in the future as well, and where does that make sense along these corridors? So the available right of way will be a big comparison piece. The next slide, as Sophia had up before, shows some of the more transit usable pieces, right? So which of these routes would be projected to have higher ridership? Which of these routes would have better travel times? They might be very close, but we'll look at each one of those. Which ones serve destinations and what types? And so here's an example of a destination map that we've been pulling together that shows all kinds of different destinations by categories and which are served by which routes. And so some of these are real quantitative things like ridership. This serves this many riders, this serves this many riders. Some are more qualitative and more judgment based. This has more opportunity for development than this route. This one has a better community feel than this route, those kind of things. So we'll be pulling together both the criteria and the measurements and the evaluation process. That'll be part of our report and our draft report as we recommend and put data together, but it'll also be part of our workshops, and we'll start to bring this information together for community to have some review, input, and analysis of. So that's kind of the evaluation side. The other side then becomes, how do we make available drawings, and when will we make available drawings with details that show things like turn lanes, various station placements and configurations, dimensioning, and routing options of LRT and street configurations, including both, do we start to build some one-way pairs in for streets? Do we build some one-way pairs in for LRT? Where are our tightest areas? All towards kind of what's the best way to address both the needs of the LRT project as well as the impacts to adjacent properties and property along here and right-of-way acquisition. We're working on those detailed drawings right now, and we hope to bring those forward as we have numerous community design workshops in Minneapolis to look and engage on what people think works best, what doesn't work, opportunities, challenges for those various options, look at both data and then the benefits and impacts of these two routes, all with the goal of not saying, yep, that's what we want to build right there, with the goal of looking at how West Broadway versus Lowry and Washington compare against each other.
And do we get to ask questions?
Yes, now is a good time for questions. I see we already have a hand up, and Adam already has his hand up.
I don't know where the hand up is, so I apologize for that portion of it. This is real quick. Where do we plan to start construction? Are we coming from Brooklyn Park down, or are we going from Target Center up? Or is there
Absolutely, Catherine, absolutely unknown. I mean, way too early to really, I mean, those questions will be answered with, for example, let me give you two different scenarios. On Central Corridor, we used one construction contract to build everything in St. Paul and one construction contract to build everything in Minneapolis. Two different contracts. On Southwest, we're building the entire line on at least the civil construction, the civil engineering construction with one contract. We got a lot of work to do after we know where, when, and how. My guess is, Catherine, because these are such long linear projects, there'll be work going on concurrently in most of the areas of the corridor at one time. But that's as much as we know right now.
Right. I just want to make sure if we start in Brooklyn Park that there's money left when you get to
Oh
Minneapolis.
no, we cannot go forward. We cannot go forward with a project unless we have a budget that we know can accomplish the project.
And then lastly, because I have to unfortunately leave in a minute or two, from a cultural standpoint, are we taking into account COVID and some of the facts that there might be a need for more train cleaning, more, all of those factors? Is that in your budget?
So since that is really an operational budget piece, Catherine, that would not be part of this budget, which is a capital budget to build the project. But I can tell you that since I work on the operations side for Hennepin County with Metro Transit as well, additional costs for cleaning and COVID related expenses are being built into those budgets right now. Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Adam?
Thanks, Dan. So my question was, if these are the two most probable routes, the Lowry and the Broadway, has there been any consideration or you ever thought about buying a storefront, leasing a storefront on both when you guys come up with concept drawings and having like an honest to God manned booth where people can come look at several concept drawings, styles, types, vote, have say, not just based on internet, not just based on town halls that people have to make time for or even know they exist. Something pedestrians can honest to God walk by, see, and interact with.
That's a great question. Yes, we have thought about that. I'm not sure we've thought about two locations, but we've thought about one location somewhere in North Minneapolis to do that. And in fact, one of the things that Sam has suggested that would be part of our workshops is we would have workshops, right, which would have a time and a place and but also potentially having what Sam uses this term, so I'm going to use this as well, what she calls office hours, which is simply just time where we have people there, we could even and have a spot where we could be there, and would it be for 2 months? Would it be for a couple of days around the workshops? I know of, Adam, locations where once routes were selected, like I was in Manhattan near the Second Avenue subway, and they had a project office right there on Second Avenue that had people there all the time so people could learn about construction changes. So those kind of things are great ideas. And yes, we're thinking of how can we build in opportunities for people to not have to just make the scheduled, one of the 3 scheduled 1-hour workshops, but to come in, see drawings, ask questions, and network. Yes.
Even take a MTC bus and retrofit it.
Sure.
So you could move it around. You could go to different intersections. It could be this on Penn one day. It could be on Aldrich the next day, and it just constantly moved around so people had a chance. Oh, I walked by. Let me take a look at this.
I mean, that's a good creative suggestion, and it's one we've been thinking of as well. Sam, Sophia, anything else you want to add? I don't want to steal your great idea, Sam. But,
It's okay.
We have a community bus.
Yeah, we have oh, sorry. I also want to kind of keep us going. We do have some really good news we want to talk about anti-displacement as well. But Adam, you hit it. You actually nailed it. We know that we just can't be in one place for only 3 hours. We need to be in a few different places, particularly as we talk about, I think, our schedule here, where community members need us to be. That's where we want to be as well. office hours, studio hours, whatever you want to call it, but definitely the same information that folks can get if they walk in and attend one of our fall meetings. And then, as Sophia was saying, we do have a community bus for exactly that. If folks haven't seen it, it's a retired bus, 40-footer, and we took out all of the seats, and it's actually we replaced them with display. So we can bring displays out, and it works out really, really nice for us to be in parking lots, and just hang out, and then folks come and see us. So that's all a part of the mix. Because maybe Sophia, let's move to the project schedule, because I think it takes us. Oh, sorry.
Can I ask one quick question, Sam?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
So I know, Dan, thank you for that update, and it covers a lot of the criteria that you're looking at. I think for our group, for the CAC, it would be helpful to see some of that kind of laid out in a way that shows like pros and cons, or just like, the trade-offs of like, hey, we can get to more people, but we give up this, or vice versa, and how, not just like, okay, there are these criteria of how many people, how many homes, display, all those things. Those are important, but it would be nice to see the comparison of Lowry versus West Broadway with some of that analysis.
And visuals. You have to put visuals with it. Most people walking by this, they're not going to understand that plan view, that plot plan view of a station. You're going to have multimedia so the layperson can walk in and make their decision off of that, not just plans.
All good points. Yes. Great. Sam, I think that's something that we'll likely be building in as we continue our process here with both the CAC and the public this fall.
Absolutely. I think you guys are hitting on the key opportunities. A little bit of our challenge to make sure that it's making sense for folks as we move forward, but that is exactly what we're looking to do. I just want to double check. Jason and Adam, you both have your hands up. Just want to make sure we've got your questions before we move on here. So, Adam, okay, hands down. Okay, thanks. They can go right back up. Don't worry. So, just want to spend a few minutes on talking about what to expect, right? And the reason why we love meeting with not only the Community Advisory Committee and the Business Advisory Committee is we can preview a lot of this information before we kind of go live, if you will. And so we are looking exactly that feedback, Jason, that you shared, kind of like what is it going to look like? Adam, what's the other ways that we can be sharing this information? So we'll be bringing that to our CAC and BAC. Clearly, the fall workshops are a really great opportunity for us to be engaging, and we'll be leaning in, working with not only obviously the staff here, but the cohort and kind of some of our other project stakeholders that that we started working with, and they're saying, hey, come and join us on a luncheon, come and join us here. Let's make sure we're getting all that information. That's throughout the whole corridor. So that really is what we're looking to do here. It's starting at the end of September and kind of moving forward. So what does that get us? Last year, this project took an incredible turn to move to an alignment that it really meets the needs of our community members and their destinations, their travels, and really also really supporting development and realizing the visions that a lot of our community businesses and residents have worked very hard on. So we spent this last year pulling all of that together. We've been bringing out the technical work. So as we get into the fall community workshops, that will really culminate in December with a draft report. So the draft report will take all of what we've done since basically last August and kind of pull it together and bring all of that together so folks can understand, as we talk about West Broadway, what are the pros and the cons, kind of that good, bad, and the ugly. Same thing with Lowry, and then also around County Road 81 as well. It is intended to have a 45-day comment period. We know by releasing in December, clearly we have holidays, we have other pieces in there. So, ultimately it'll be a little bit longer than that because we do want to account for that time that folks are, not spending a time reviewing a report and doing different things with their lives. So what happens is that after that 45-day comment period, we're going to take all of that feedback that we receive, make sure we're getting it right, making sure we didn't forget anything. answering any of the questions folks are coming up, being able to kind of give ourselves to say, can we come out now with a final report that builds on that December work through the comment period, and then also provides a recommendation about a route and also the station study areas that we can advance into engineering and environmental review. So it's kind of the beginning of the process now that we can focus in on the route and those station areas that we still feel like make the most sense. That really is meeting the community's needs and desires, and that could go into the sort of next phase of engineering and environmental review, and that finer piece to it. That too would have a 30-day comment period. We'd bring that back in and then kind of release that sort of final report after that as well. So really, if Sophia, if we can maybe move to the next slide, and I'll definitely stop because I know folks are going to have questions on this as well. So what is in that report? It's the reason why the blue line extension is needed, kind of what does it serve, what does it do for us, not only as community members, as businesses, but as a region. It really builds from the work that we started in early on this spring and releasing those initial routes, and kind of the evaluation piece goes in there. Talks about the process that we went through, and ensuring and hoping that everyone feels that it was transparent, that when we knew things and we were able to talk about it, that folks had the opportunity to engage, to improve, and bring their best ideas to it. And then also the evaluation piece, which I think, Jason, you kind of talked a little bit about then. How do we take, how do we look at a West Broadway? How do we take a Lowry route and kind of compare that with those project principles that we worked on early on in the criteria that makes sense for folks, both qualitative and quantitative on that as well. And then, of course, incorporates the feedback from the community in terms of what we've been hearing. So that's really what it is. It's kind of like 2 bites of an apple, the draft report in December, and then kind of that final report, each with a formal comment period as well. So I'm just going to stop right there and see if there's any questions before we move on. Okay, so the slide that right before this just talks a little bit, just as a reminder of some of those project goals that we had set. So it's really kind of bringing that back to the forefront here and bringing that into those reports and into the process. Let me know if you guys have any more questions. Happy to talk about this, but I'm really happy to turn this back over to Dan to talk about a pretty good milestone we've got going on. Oh, Dan, you're on mute.
Let's fix that. Okay. So as everybody on this call certainly knows from the Corridor Advisory, from the Community Advisory Committee, as we took on this work early in 2021, we started from day one hearing, we're interested in LRT. We're interested in LRT in North Minneapolis. We're interested in LRT continuing in Robbinsdale, Crystal, and Brooklyn Park. But we are concerned about potential impacts that'll cause displacement of businesses, displacement of residents, displacement of residential properties, land use values that go up, raise rents, and potentially have impacts on existing businesses and residential property owners. And so what are we going to do about that, guys? I mean, we're happy to talk about turn lanes and stations and bridges and ridership numbers and trains, but we're also as equally as concerned about displacement. So we made a commitment as a project team that Met Council and Hennepin County together would work towards forming and putting in place an anti-displacement working group. And so we put together a mission for what we thought that might look like, and we realized that we aren't experts in leading anti-displacement working groups. And so we issued an RFP and went out and looked to bring on an entity, a person, someone and somebody to help facilitate that work for us. And we issued an RFP, went through a review, and we are recommending for a contract to lead the anti-displacement working group effort, the Center for Urban and Regional Affairs from the University of Minnesota. And of course, many of you know this group as Cura, who has worked in many different scenarios in and around all of the communities, both Robbinsdale, Crystal, Brooklyn Park, and Minneapolis on various things in the past. Cura submitted a proposal and a team that we believe is best suited to help guide this work, both from a analysis and impact and past work standpoint, as well as advancing recommended policies and processes to help deal with this issue. So we're very pleased to announce that we want to move forward with a contract with Cura. Their project manager would be C. Terrence Anderson. Many of you may have worked with C. Terrence in his past work at Met Council and at Metro Transit in both equity and community engagement. He did a lot of work on similar corridors. He's a North Minneapolis resident. His background is in both the transportation planning and land use work that meets so heavily here. So we're excited to have that. We're excited for the team you see here. This is a lot of their group. So you may recognize some names on here. Malik, their program director of neighborhood leadership and organizing, has done numerous work out here. Kristen Murray also serves, is at Cura, but also serves at Juxtaposition for the Arts as well. Dr. Brittany Lewis has done a lot of background research in gentrification and displacement. And so we're just real excited about what this team can bring to this. They also bring some subcontractors as well. So Bellwether Consulting with Allison Bell is going to help lead part of this, to help develop and use equity as an equity lens to help put in place policies and practices and procedures at government organizations. That's what she does. She also has some history with working on equity with Metro Transit in the past. And so we're happy to have her and her team as a sub-consultant to Cura. We're also happy to have the Housing Justice Center and Margaret Kaplan with their knowledge of housing law and ways to preserve and keep housing in place, using both federal, local, and state policies to help guide this. We think this team is strong. We think this team can really supplement our team much more able in engineering and our engineering consultants to really help guide this overall project. So where are we right now? We weren't ready yet to bring folks here to this meeting. We still have to kind of get through the approval process, which will happen next week, to approve the negotiation of their contract, to hopefully get it executed here by the end of the month, and then to kick this baby off with starting to talk about how we'll form the actual anti-displacement work group. Remember, this is not the work group. This is a facilitator and a consultant team to help form a work group that looks a little bit like the next slide, which starts to bring, that was a cute, thank you, Sophia, that looks like this around the table with the Cura folks serving as a facilitator, the project team, our staff here, Sam and I, and Sophia and Nick and others from our team, but also community organizations, private sector, local government help, philanthropic organizations, and other that will make up the anti-displacement working group. And I imagine that there will be times when we will bring both Cura staff and staff from the working group in to visit with our advisory committees and to make recommendations to both the CAC and the BAC, and then ultimately the CMC about various things that might be done, as well as recommended policies and procedures starting right now, not waiting until the project is done, but starting right now to start us on the path of making sure we're implementing a project that starts dealing with these kind of issues right as we move in to design work and move forward. So very excited. This has been a long time coming. It's taken us some time, as many things do in the public sector, to come up, to go from an idea to having a contract in place. And this is moving fairly quickly in our world, but we're happy to have it be here as we still have a deal of work to do until we get through our final report. Sam, anything you want to add? Or I'm certainly happy to answer any questions or comments or thoughts that people have on this.
No, thanks, Dan, for covering it. I would just add that we're so excited for this work, because I think this begins to answer some of the questions, some of the things that we heard from even Catherine tonight, and really looking forward to this work getting ready, getting kicked off, and moving with us as well.
Any questions about the anti-displacement group? We hope to have them here with us next month to have more discussion and get things moving a little bit. But it's quiet. Okay, then I'll just tee off that our next meeting is our normal October date, where we would hope to have them. And then suggesting our November date slips back a week. The November 2nd, which is the BAC meeting, is the Minneapolis election. So we don't want to be hosting a meeting the same day that there is an election, and then you guys just happen to be the day afterwards. So we like to same week you, as we call it. And so thinking that we just want to push back the November meeting. Obviously, that's a couple months away. And then we'll also, as we move through the fall and have a release date of our December report that Sam kind of went through in the schedule, we'll want to make sure the committee meeting lines up with that date as well. So just kind of schedule FYI, next month is our normal cadence. November, we might be the second Wednesday. And then maybe something similar for December as well, as we look at how the schedule lines up. Cool. Chairs, committee, any last things? Otherwise, I think we can call for to adjourn. Jason?
I think we're looking good. I mean, I guess the one thing is that I'm gonna meet with the CMC. So if there's anything specific that the group wants me to share to the CMC or feedback on, I'm happy to relay those messages. Otherwise, I think this is a great update, and thanks everyone for attending and all your attention.
Hey, question, Sophia. When are we looking at in-person meetings? Ever, forever?
It's a good question. Basically, our the kind of direction from our council is a little bit like through October to try to stay virtual. Obviously, we're having some in-person open houses. I just don't think you can do community engagement in some ways without being just there. So that doesn't. We kind of official direction on advisory committees and whatnot. I think it would be really great in November in particular, assuming that COVID's not doing something crazy that we have to consider with some of the Minneapolis workshops. There's just going to be a lot of information in terms of options and stuff, and it might be worth considering being in person for that. And that's all just kind of assuming that the governor doesn't give us direction to the agency. Like right now, the direction is any advisory committees to attempt to be virtual through October. So, I think last time we posed that question to the group overall was still kind of in the summer a little bit, and the feedback that we got was people wanted to meet in person, but some folks were still a little bit on edge about it and whatnot. So happy to look into it as we move through the year a little bit. But as you see, I guess the other way to answer it is, you see from a lot of our Nick and I were in person somewhere today, and we've been doing a lot more of that. So the more we can build that in, it feels more stilted online, than it does in person in a lot of ways, and you don't really get to it's harder to have discussion online. So maybe that's, as I see blank faces looking back at me, maybe that was sounds like maybe a good idea. We'll see what happens in November if we can get together in person, but let's make that call in October.
Makes sense.
Cool. Jason, do you have what you need in terms of what the committee might want to bring forth to the CMC?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just, obviously share what we talked about and maybe some of the questions and just kind of recap our meeting, but it doesn't sound like there's anything other specific that needs to be brought up.
Kind of the norming and storming still a little bit. A lot of updates and a lot of, hopefully we'll be very hands-on the next 2 months with some more updates. Cool.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.